Chapter 32. As the saying among real estate brokers went, when it came to the closing, you went to the money. So Louis Kendall, Larson Richards, and two lawyers showed up at the Key News Broadcast Center at 9:30 Friday morning to complete the final paperwork to transfer ownership of the house on Sandal Ridge Road. The lawyers were members of the bar in both New Jersey and New York, so there was no problem conducting the closing of a Garden State house in the Empire State Office. Lois had risen especially early, walking through the house one last time before driving into the city. Elisa had entrusted Lois with the task most home buyers insisted on doing themselves, inspecting the home, room by room, one last time before the final checks were handed over to the seller. The house was broom clean and everything looked in order. The realtor prayed that there would be no surprise once Elisa moved in. Peggy escorted the group for the lobby up the elevator to Elisa's office. Miss Blake was running just a few minutes behind, her assistant explained, but will be there soon. While the others took seat, Larson Richard walked around the office, browsing at the books and inspecting the four Emmy statues that sat on the shelves. He looked at the picture of the little girl in the silver frame on Elisa's desk. He noted that hand noted turquoise rug in tones of blue and reds that lay atop the standard UC office, wall to wall, lending an air of elegance to the room. The tufted leather sofa was strewn with attractive Kellen pillows. Framed awards dotted the walls, but the best part of the office was the view through the windowed wall looking out the news studio below. The floor beneath buzzed with energy as dozens of men and women sat in their modern desks, typing busily on their computer keyboards, reading the wires and talking on the phones. The anchor desk Richard had seen so often on television was located in the middle of the large studio, lit with dozens of bright lights suspended from the ceiling. Large television cameras were trained on the anchor chair. There was a glass office at the side of room where four men and one woman sat around an oblong table. He could see television screen in front of all of them, along with an additional half dozen television sets affixed to the walls. "What goes on in there?" asked Richard, gesturing out the window to the glass office as Peggy approached him with one of the cups of coffee that she was offering to everyone in the room. Peggy had held out a paper napkin to Richard. "We call that the fish blow. All the senior producers sit in there. It's the command post for all the planning and coordinating of the evening's headlines." Richard nodded mm, nonchalantly, determined not to show any enthusiasm. He was impressed, all right, but he wasn't about to act it. He was thrilled Eliza Blake was buying his parents' house. He had been certain the deal would go through. There would be no problem with her coming up with the money, and maybe if he played his card right, he may be able to interest her in doing some invest with him. Right now, he just wanted Elisa to show up. He wanted to get this house closed and get the check in the bank before it's shut indoors this afternoon. With the long Labor Day weekend ahead, he didn't want to have to wait until Tuesday to make the deposit. He had to start drawing against the house money immediately. I'm sorry I'm late. Please excuse me. Dressed in a stunning magenta suit, Alyssa entered briskly, shaking her attorney's hand and kissing Lois on the cheek. Alyssa was sensitive to the fact that this once had been Lois's husband's office, and she suggested it may be somewhat difficult for her to be here. But if it bothered Lois, she was courageous enough not to show it. The realtor graciously introduced Alyssa to the seller and his lawyer. It's nice to meet you, Mr. Richard. Your parents had a beautiful home, and I'm so glad to be able to buy it. I hope you'll be very happy there, Miss Blake, said Richard, with his most charming smile. We had great times in that house. He's smooth. Alyssa found herself thinking, too smooth. Should we get to it? Suggested Alyssa, turning. I know Miss Blake is very busy. One by one, the papers were signed. The homeowner's insurance, the title insurance, the RESPA form, so Uncle Sam would know who paid what to whom, and the Realtor's commission statement. When Lois was handed her commission check, always paid by the seller, Alyssa saw Larson Richard wins. Finally, the title was transferred, the deed was presented to the new owner of the home, and the seller had his money. Richards rose quickly and extended his hands to Alyssa. Well, good luck, Alyssa, if I may call you that, seeing as I'm sure we'll be seeing each other around. Alyssa didn't look forward to it. As Richard and his lawyer headed toward the door, Lois called it out. Oh, Mr. Richard, we need to get the combination for the safe in the master bedroom. Alyssa may want to change it, of course, but in the meantime, with all the workmen in the house, she may have some things she wants to lock up. A look of annoyance crossed Richard's face. Too bad if he's bugged, thought Lois. With $2 million in his pocket, it was little enough to cut up the combination. Larson damned well better came up with it. Before leaving the broadcast center, Lois took the back staircase from the hallway outside Alyssa's office down the fishbowl on the floor below, knowing that she would be in the building for Alyssa's closing. Range had told her to stop by and say hello. Lois had known Range Bullock for years, in his role as her former husband's producer, but it was only after Bill had died last spring that Lois and Range had become close. Died is a nice way of saying it, Lois thought, as she approached the fishbowl doorway. Bill Kendall, world-renowned anchor of King Evening's headline, had committed suicide, and devastated though she was that Bill had felt desperate enough to do the unthinkable. Part of her still for it, couldn't forgive it for it, and for what he had done to their son, William. She will never understand how Bill could have left their child behind. She had had many dark days herself since the time they had found out that William had fragile X syndrome, yet any thoughts she had had of checking out, and there had been a few of them, she had resolutely pushed it out of her mind. William needed her. He needed both his parents. In fairness to Bill, for 19 years he had been a great father. He loved their boy, and William adored his dad. It had been almost 6 months since his father had died, But William still looked into the car expectantly when she came to pick him up at his group home. It broke her heart every time she saw the puzzlement in his face when she explained it to him again that Daddy was gone now and wasn't coming back. Daddy's in heaven, right, Mom? Yes, sweetheart, that's in heaven. Watching over you and still loving you every single day. Damn Bill. Range, a telephone cradle against his shoulder, was busily tapping at his computer keyboard. Sensing the presence of someone watching him, he looked up and smiled when he saw her. Coming in, he muted. The fishbowl was empty save for the two of them, but Lois knew that the office wouldn't remain that way for long. The digital clock on the wall read 11:06. 9 minutes until Range will preside over the morning meeting in which the senior producers and writers will take their seats in the glass office and report on the dozens of stories developing around the world. By the end of the day, only 7 or 8 will make the final lineup as pieces of the broadcast. Alright, we'll talk later. Let me know what you hear from the Hurricane Center. Range hung up the phone and groaned. Each year it's the same damn thing. From August to October, we have to gear up with every freaking hurricane alert. Most of them peter out to be no big deal, but there's always the chance that the whooper will hit. Tell me about it, said Lois. I remember Bill going off to cover those nightmares and worrying myself sick over him. She walked behind Range's chair and reached out to massage the muscle at the base of his neck. A little tight today, are we? Yeah, and I don't want this hurricane to interrupt our plans for the long weekend. After 20 years of being involved with men who worked in the news business, Lois had never really gotten used to the fact that breaking stories that had nothing to do with her life could very often force her to cancel her long anticipated plans. But she had learned to be philosophical. There was nothing she could do about it if she was to be involved with the two men who had excited her the most. Look, if it turns out we can drive up to the Cape, it's not the end of the world. The traffic will be horrendous anyway. The weather up here is supposed to be glorious. We'll spend the weekend out at my place and relax out there. We'll We'll barbecue and swim and do whatever our little hearts desire. Then, if you have to come into the office, you can. Range reached behind and pulled her hand from his neck and kissed the inside of the palm. Good. What a relief you understand this lunacy. For the tingle that ran through her at the touch of his lips, Lois was willing to be understanding.